The last toast. The champagne glass shattered before it hit the floor. Marianne DuPont, the dazzling socialite and host of the evening, froze mid-step, her fingers still curled as if the stem of the glass remained in her grasp. Around her, the golden glow of her grand ballroom flickered with unease, the once lively chatter now replaced by a stunned silence. All eyes turned toward the marble bar. James Hollis, the sharp-tongued journalist, lay slumped over the counter, his once lively green eyes staring blankly into the void. Bear, the very man who had spent the evening goading and provoking, throwing accusations like darts at a target only he could see. Dead Detective Elias Grayson, a reluctant guest at the party, was the first to step forward, his seasoned instincts flaring to life. Crouched beside the body, pressing 2 fingers to James' neck before glancing up. "Poison," he murmured. "He's been dead for less than a minute." Gasps rippled through the room. A few guests instinctively stepped back, as if afraid that death might be contagious. Grayson straightened and glanced around. Nobody leaves. P's voice, firm yet calm, carried an undeniable authority. James Hollis was murdered, and the killer is in this room. A heavy pause. Then the unraveling began. Victor Moreau, the cold, calculating businessman, barely reacted to the murder. His feud with James was public knowledge, and his sharp, shark-like demeanor made him an easy villain. He had motive, power, and a kind of face that belonged to a man capable of anything. His response: a slow, deliberate sip of whiskey. "If I wanted him dead," he said, bored, "he'd be in an unmarked grave, not slumped over a bar in the middle of a party." Charlotte Reed, James' ex-lover, was less composed, her jaw clenched, eyes burning with something between shock and fury. Their breakup had been messy, public. She had barely spoken to him all night, except for one brief, heated exchange. "He was going to ruin someone tonight," she muttered. "I just didn't think he'd ruin himself." Then there was Marianne, hands trembling, eyes darting across the room. She looked like a woman whose world had just caved in. She was the last to drink with James. Cheer had laughed with him, clinked glasses, then dropped hers in horror when he collapsed. Grayson's sharp gaze landed on her. "Ms. DuPont, you were the last to see him alive." "What did he say to you?" She swallowed hard. "He was teasing me, saying he had a secret that would change everything. Then we toasted." Her voice wavered. "That's all." Grayson frowned. The whiskey glass in front of James was untouched. He hadn't even taken a sip. Then why was he dead? His eyes drifted to the floor, where a napkin lay crumpled near James' hand. Realization struck like lightning. The poison wasn't in James' whiskey. It was in the champagne. "Marianne," he said slowly, "why did you drop your glass?" Her breath hitched. "I I don't know. You were supposed to drink it, weren't you? The room went ice. Marianne's lips parted, but no words came. Ben, the bartender, Elliot Barnes, spoke for the first time all night. Pooh. She wasn't supposed to survive. A stunned silence followed. Every head turned toward him. He wasn't even looking at them, just polishing a glass, calm as ever. Grayson's pulse quickened. "Elliot," he said carefully, stepping closer. He poured the drinks. Elliot finally met his gaze. There was something unreadable in his eyes. You poisoned a glass of champagne. A slow exhale. A tired smile. And then, "It wasn't meant for James." Gasps. Grayson stepped between him and Marianne, his instincts roaring. "You were trying to kill her." Elliot's grip on the glass tightened. "She destroyed my father," he murmured. "Crushed his business, ruined his name. He drank himself to death while she hosted parties in this same house." I thought it was poetic. His voice was eerily distant, filled with something colder than hatred. I didn't even have to disguise it. She'd never suspect the bartender. No one ever does. Marianne's knees wobbled as the weight of realization crashed over her. Victor exhaled sharply, shaking his head. And here I thought I was the most dangerous man in this room. Elliot held out his wrists before Grayson could even say a word. "Do what you have to." His gaze flicked toward Marianne. "But you'll forget about me, won't you? Just like you forgot about my father." As the detective led him away, the room remained eerily still. The guests barely breathed, haunted by the revelation. The night had started with a toast, and ended with a warning: never ignore the quiet one.